I found out my sister was plotting to marry my husband. You won't believe how I got my ultimate revenge. I caught my sister trying to steal my husband, and how it all ended will probably blow your mind. This is the story of how I got back at her. My name is Lisa, I am 30 years old, and I have been married to Marcus, not his real name, for the past 3 years. Marcus and I actually met way back in high school, but life took us in different directions after graduation. Years later, we crossed paths again, and once we started dating, there was no stopping us. Before long, we were married, and now here we are, still happily together after 3 years. But not everybody was thrilled when we got married, and the person who had the biggest issue with it was my older sister, Na, who is the same age as Marcus at 32. Na and I went to the same high school, and back then, she had one massive crush on Marcus. The problem was, Marcus never felt the same way about her, at least not from what I know. Matter of fact, Marcus admitted to me a few months after we started dating that he had no idea Na even liked him back then. Na was so upset when Marcus and I got engaged that she flat out refused to show up at our wedding. After the engagement announcement, she stopped talking to me altogether. Honestly, I did not lose any sleep over it because my sister has never liked me, and to this day, I still have no clue why. It was not one of those situations where I was the favorite kid and she got pushed aside. Our parents treated us both the same, always. I was not better at school, I was not some sports star, and we even looked alike, so it was never about appearance either. For reasons I could never figure out, Na just decided from day one that I was someone she could not stand. When we were little, I tried plenty of times to be her friend, but it always ended the same, she would shut me out. Eventually, I just gave up and accepted the fact that my own sister could not stand me. That is just how it was. We were not close, so her skipping my wedding did not feel like a big deal at all. The only time we see each other is during holidays or family get-togethers, and even then, we act like the other person does not exist. She pretends I am not there, and I do the same because there is no point trying to fix something that has been broken for this long. The whole family knows about the situation too, so nobody really brings it up. It is just common knowledge at this point that we do not talk or mess with each other. Well, at least that was true until about 6 months ago, when Na crossed a line so ridiculous I still cannot believe it happened. One night, Marcus got a call from Na, and she was drunk out of her mind. Right off the bat, she started rambling about how he had married the wrong sister and how she would make a much better wife than I ever could. What she did not know was that Marcus had her on speakerphone, and I was sitting right there on the couch next to him. The two of us just sat there listening, and I could not help but laugh at how crazy she sounded. Before she hung up, she declared that one way or another, she was going to marry him, and if she could not, she would be perfectly fine being his side piece. I remember sitting there, stunned. It was hilarious, yes, but it was also downright insulting. I had never done anything to Na, and here she was, trying to snake her way into my marriage. That is when I decided enough was enough. If she wanted to play games with me, I was going to play right back. I told Marcus to flirt with her, just enough to make her think she actually had a shot with him. It was cruel, I will admit that, but it also felt like it was about time someone gave her a taste of her own medicine. Marcus sent her a message inviting her over to our house, saying they could go ahead and get married right then and there. Na jumped at the chance like she had just won the lottery. The next day, we set up a hidden camera in our living room, and I went all out decorating the place to look like some corny wedding chapel. When she showed up, I was hiding in the next room with the camera rolling, ready to watch the show. Watching her try to seduce my husband was one of the most awkward and hilarious things I have ever seen. Marcus, bless his heart, was so stiff and uncomfortable, but he played along just enough to keep her believing. They went through a fake little vow exchange, slipped on some cheap rings, and when it was over, Marcus told her to lay low and keep it secret until he gave her the green light to go public. He did not even kiss her, but somehow she still believed the whole thing was real. After she left, Marcus and I laughed so hard we were crying. We could not believe how far she was willing to go just to get back at me. It was sad, honestly, the fact that her obsession with Marcus was so strong she would fall for something so stupid. And the funniest part? Marcus does not love anyone but me. At first, we thought about sending the video straight to my parents, but we held off. We figured Na was not done stirring up trouble, and it would be better to save that little gem for the perfect moment when she did something so ridiculous there would be no coming back from it. That way, our parents would see her for who she really was, someone willing to destroy her own sister's marriage out of pure spite. My parents always treated us the same, but for some reason, they always cut Na way more slack than she deserved. A few months before my wedding, they even paid for a trip to Spain for her because she claimed she was so heartbroken over me marrying Marcus that she needed time away. It drove me crazy, but they were also paying for my wedding venue, so I bit my tongue. They were not being unfair, they were just too nice. When Marcus and I went on our honeymoon, they let Na stay at their house so she would not feel lonely. It infuriated me how she kept using my relationship with Marcus to manipulate our parents into feeling sorry for her, and they kept falling for it over and over again. I wanted them to see the real her, not the sad, heartbroken daughter they thought they knew. So, yeah, I was willing to play dirty if that was what it took to open their eyes. But I knew if we showed them the video right away, they would say we were just being petty. They would not see Na as the villain, they would see me as the bully. So we waited. We knew it was only a matter of time before Na did something so insane that our video would be the perfect response. When my parents sat me down and told me they expected me to apologize to my own sister, the same sister who had been trying to steal my husband right out from under me, I lost it. There was just no way I was going to say I was sorry to someone who was trying to take not just my husband, but my entire life. It felt like they wanted me to just forget everything she had done, like none of it mattered. And sure, I will admit that I probably went further than I should have with the prank we pulled, but that did not suddenly erase all the garbage Na had done leading up to it. My parents could not get past the fact that what Marcus and I did messed with Na's head pretty badly. From their point of view, we should have handled the whole thing differently, blocked her number after that drunken phone call and filled them in right away instead of holding on to it and waiting for her to publicly humiliate herself. They kept saying that both of us were just too wrapped up in ourselves to see the bigger picture and that we needed to take a good, hard look at how we handled things. My mom told me straight up that, yeah, Na might have been a jealous, spiteful homewrecker, but I was not any better. In her eyes, the stunt Marcus and I pulled was not just cruel, it was borderline unhinged. She said she could not believe she had raised two grown women who hated each other so much that we were both willing to sink to rock bottom just to hurt each other. That stung. It has been 2 days since that conversation, and I still hear her words playing over and over in my head. Even though Marcus thinks my parents went way too hard on us, I cannot figure out what I feel anymore. I do not know what to think. Am I the one in the wrong here for keeping my sister fooled for half a year into thinking my husband wanted her? Did I cross the line, or was I just giving her a taste of her own medicine? Update 1. Hey everyone, I know I messed up. Trust me, I get it now. There is no need to keep piling on, I see it clear as day. I am a human being, and I made one hell of a mistake. Looking back, I realized the whole thing was cruel and completely unnecessary. The truth is, I just wanted my parents to see Na for who she really was so badly that I let my own anger get the best of me. I guess I had been carrying around just as much hate for her as she had for me, and I did not even notice until it was too late. There is no excuse for what I did, and I can see how much damage I caused. I hurt her in a way that went way beyond what she had done to me. That is on me, no question about it. A few days after everything blew up, my parents called me and let me in on a whole lot of stuff I never knew about, not things that completely knocked the wind out of me. I just sat there, speechless. I feel embarrassed and ashamed of myself, and I would give anything to go back and do things differently. The truth is, we should have just blocked her number that night and moved on with our lives. Turns out, Na has been battling a serious alcohol addiction for a long time. I had no clue. My parents said they had been helping her through it for years, and she had even relapsed once before. They were keeping a close eye on her, trying to keep her on track, but after Marcus and I dropped the truth on her, she spiraled again. Those fancy vacations I thought my parents were spoiling her with? They were not vacations at all, they were trips to rehab. My parents used the vacation story as a cover because they did not want the family to know the truth, and I had no idea. Na and I had barely spoken since she left for college, so there was no way for me to know what was going on with her. My parents told me they realized now that maybe they made a mistake by keeping me in the dark. They thought they were protecting us both, but they did not realize it would backfire the way it did. They never stopped to think that maybe I would end up resenting Na for what I thought was special treatment, and that resentment would eventually blow up into something like this. I honestly do not know how to process any of this. I feel like garbage. Na apparently had behavioral issues her whole life, I just never saw it because my parents covered for her so much. They really did try their best to raise us equally, and I believe that. They were good parents. But by keeping us apart and keeping secrets, they accidentally fed the fire between us without meaning to. Somewhere along the line, both Na and I stopped seeing each other as family. We were just enemies, rivals who wanted to see the other lose, no matter what it took. I see now how messed up that is, and I regret every bit of it. I am planning to visit her as soon as I can, even if all I can do is say I am sorry to her face. Of course, there are plenty of nosy relatives sniffing around, dying to get the full story so they can gossip about it. Normally, I would have used that to my advantage to trash Na even more. But not this time. I am done with all that. The only thing I care about right now is making sure she gets better and nothing worse happens to her. When my parents told me they found her passed out alone in her house, it hit me like a truck. That had never happened before. Every other time she relapsed, she always had enough left in her to call for help before things got too bad. But this time, she was completely out cold. After her big social media post, my parents had not heard from her for 2 straight days. They showed up at her house to check on her, and that is when they found her. I cannot imagine what that must have been like for them, knowing that the daughters they raised ended up so bitter and broken toward each other that there was no coming back. I did this. That is on me. I do not even know why I am writing this out here, but I guess part of me hopes that if I put it out there into the universe, maybe Na will feel it somehow. I do not know if she will ever forgive me, but I am truly, genuinely sorry. Update 2. I went to see Na today. It was the first time we had actually spoken face to face in I do not even know how many years. She looked rough, not just tired or worn down, but like someone who had been through hell and back. Her face showed it. She has been in rehab for a few weeks now, and while they say she is doing better, it was clear she was not in any shape to be social. She had refused to see me all this time, but today, for whatever reason, she finally agreed. Walking into that room was one of the hardest things I have ever done. We were not close growing up, and once we hit adulthood, we were basically strangers. But there we were, 2 grown women who used to share a house, sitting across from each other like we were barely acquaintances. It was awkward and uncomfortable, but it needed to happen. I apologized. I laid it all out there, admitted I had gone way too far. I told her how much I hated her and how I let that hatred turn me into somebody I do not even recognize. I told her the prank was not just mean, it was flat out cruel. She agreed with me. But then she apologized too. She told me she had always been jealous of me, from the moment I was born. She saw me as her competition, even when we were kids. She never knew how to stop comparing herself to me, and every time I succeeded at something, she felt like it was proof she was losing. When Marcus chose me, it was like her whole life's losing streak was confirmed. That is why she chased after him so hard. She told me the competition was over. It did not mean we were suddenly best friends, but maybe, just maybe, it was a place to start. After everything that happened, I feel a whole lot lighter. I do not know if you would call it peace exactly, but at least I am not walking around with that same weight on my chest anymore. Update 3. Hey everybody, I just wanted to clear up a few things, because I saw some wild guesses floating around. First off, yes, Marcus and I are still together. That should have been obvious, but for some reason, a few people assumed we split up just because I had not mentioned him in the other updates. That is not the case. He knows everything that went down with Na, every last bit of it. He also apologized to her personally, even though she was not all that interested in hearing from him. Na made it pretty clear she did not want to talk to him face to face, but she told me she does not hold anything against him anymore. She understands now that Marcus was just trying to stand by me and be a good husband. That was the end of that conversation. Marcus definitely feels awful about the whole situation, probably just as bad as I do, if not worse. I have no idea why some people out there were trying to act like Marcus was just sitting back and letting things happen. I never said that, and I do not know where that came from. Hopefully, this clears that up so people can stop calling us all kinds of nasty names. We both apologized. Na accepted it. That is the end of that chapter. Now, for the folks blaming my parents and acting like this is all somehow their fault, I do not really agree with that. Sure, my parents could have handled some things differently, and they have admitted that. But I know they were doing the best they could with what they knew at the time. They were trying to juggle all of this with as much care as possible, even if it did not turn out perfect. They chose to keep Na's addiction private, and yeah, maybe that was not the smartest move, but at the time, they thought they were protecting everyone. Considering how much Na and I hated each other, it probably made sense to them to keep us separated, even when it came to personal struggles. They had no way of knowing how this would all play out down the line, so I cannot hold that against them. There are also some people who still want to paint Na as the one and only villain in all of this. If you are one of them, I get it. She did some terrible things, no doubt about it. But the truth is, I was not much better. What I did to her was cruel. It was calculated. It was revenge, plain and simple. If I have a chance now to put all that behind me, try to rebuild my family, and maybe, just maybe, have a normal relationship with my sister for the first time in my life, I am going to take that chance. No hesitation. Thank you. Update 4. Hey everybody. It has been a full year since I last said anything, and it feels kind of strange to be back, but I figured it was time to fill you in on where things stand. A lot of people warned me that Na was going to screw me over again. Some of you told me to cut my parents out of my life entirely. There were even some who said I was the real problem and everyone else would be better off without me around. I am really glad to say none of those predictions came true. Right now, all of us are doing pretty well, each in our own way. Na and I made a real effort to stop all the fighting and try to find some common ground. At this point in our lives, we are both too old and too tired to keep dragging all this baggage around. When you are in your 30s, you have enough to worry about without adding ancient sibling drama on top of it. We just did not have the energy for it anymore. So, we made a deal to try to act like regular people toward each other, not best friends, but at least not enemies. We started meeting up for coffee every few months, nothing big, just a way to keep in touch without any pressure. And at a family wedding last year, we were actually polite to each other, which shocked the whole family. People literally could not believe what they were seeing. I am not going to lie, we are never going to be the kind of sisters who call each other every day or go on vacations together. That is just not who we are. But we are not out to hurt each other anymore either, and that is more than enough for me. Na actually found a decent job in another city, so she is moving a bit farther away from all of us. I will admit, given her struggles with alcohol, that makes me nervous. But my parents are keeping close tabs on her, and if they ever need help, Marcus and I will be there. No questions asked. For the first time in years, it actually feels like I have a family that is not constantly at war with itself. I never thought Na and I would have any kind of relationship again, let alone one where we could talk like normal people. It is not perfect, but it is progress, and I am pretty thankful for that. And speaking of family, there is some big news on my end. Marcus and I found out a few weeks ago that we are expecting our first baby. It was the best surprise we could have asked for, and so far, everything is going great. I am about a month in, and we already shared the news with our close family and friends over a group video call. I even called my parents and Na together to tell them, and I was not sure how Na would react, but she seemed genuinely happy for us. The next day, she sent me a bouquet of yellow roses to congratulate me, and it actually made me tear up a little. It was the kindest thing she has done for me in years. Right now, life feels good. It is crazy how much easier things get when you are not carrying around so much hate and resentment. I am looking forward to everything that comes with being a mom, and I hope the good streak we are on right now keeps going.